This is CUNY TV, the television station of the greatest urban university in the world.
As the sun sets in New York, Twilight has become a time of lively public applause for healthcare workers and a time to reflect on the complex problems of the global pandemic. Whether sheltering in apartments or in remote locations, people in arts and culture are still gathering, online or at safe distances, to talk about today's new reality. The following conversations with filmmaker Nanette Burstein and artist and performer Kevin Bewersdorf took place in the Catskill Mountains of upstate New York at that time of the day.
Nanette Burstein is a film and television director. Her first film, On the Ropes, about the struggles of inner-city boxers, was nominated for an Academy Award. She has done feature films as well as documentaries, often exploring the lives of complex figures, such as her most recent subject, Hillary Clinton. You made this film On the Ropes when you were actually a student in film school, or close soon after, right?
Actually, I started just before I started school. I started filming it. While I was in college, I interned for a documentary series, and then they hired me full-time as an assistant editor, and then they hired me as an editor. So by the age of 22, 23, I was editing documentaries, and I continued to do that for a few years. You know, as an editor, you learn a tremendous amount. So what happened was I was watching all of the Mike Tyson fights when he came out of prison. He was trying to win back all 3 belts, and the fights were totally lame. You know, he would knock someone out in the first 5 seconds. But on the undercard of one of the fights was the first professional female boxing match, at least that was televised. And it was riveting. And I thought, wow, you know, I'd be interested in making a film about that, perhaps. And I'd like to learn how to box. So I started learning to box at this gym. And I realized my story wasn't about female boxers, although one of my characters' subjects was a female boxer,
right.
Tyrene. What really struck me is, you know, just the crack epidemic in America that was going on. And I realized the story was not about gender. It was really about class and what was happening in this community. The tagline at the end was, "The real fight is outside of the ring," and that was very true.
Yeah.
And the boxing became a metaphor for how they were just getting through daily life.
Yeah, I'm trying to connect the dots between that and Hillary, and obviously you've done a lot of different things in between, but would you say that there's an interest in stories that are about struggle or about a certain kind of underdog experience and sort of someone battling through that?
Yeah, although I've done a lot of biographies as well, and I think Hillary fits more into that genre that I've done. You know, the film that I did after On the Ropes was The Kid Stays in the Picture, about this movie producer, Robert Evans, who was a controversial figure. I did a film on Tanya Harding, who's also a controversial figure. I did a film on John McAfee, who was a controversial figure. And, you know, Hillary is a very polarizing figure. I love doing documentaries about people who have achieved a lot, and yet for different circumstances, their lives are complicated, and the way that they've been perceived is complicated. And the themes that emerge from their lives are, you know, really universal and important.
I mean, how'd you get her to do it?
Well, what happened was during the 2016 election, she had people filming behind the scenes of her campaign, not with the intention of doing a documentary at the time. A lot of that material was used for marketing. It was rope lines, but they also managed to capture a lot of really interesting moments with her and her staff. And so after the election, they decided, well, maybe we could, you know, make a documentary with this footage. So the intention was already there to do something. And Hulu bought it and said, we want to use this footage to make a documentary. And so I met with them as a potential filmmaker. They ended up hiring me, the producer, Hulu, and Hillary also approved of working with me. And I then reimagined it as not a campaign film per se, although it would have that element because I liked a lot of this footage. I liked how unguarded she was and how fly in the wall it was. But I felt like there was a much bigger story, a much more important story to tell by telling her whole life and interweaving it in the 16 campaign.
Actually, she comes through as being quite warm and spontaneous,
Yeah.
which is, I think, probably the intention of it in some ways. But I think in some ways the documentary film such as this is a way to kind of recuperate somebody's reputation after they've been battered about in sort of daily news, 24-hour news cycle. I mean, I'm imagining that Hillary probably wanted this kind of record of who she was and what she had tried to do in this campaign in particular.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't her idea, but she definitely agreed to do it because of what you're saying. And I think the fact that she's realized, okay, well, everyone says all of these crazy things about me, so I might as well have my side of the story out there and share what I think. I think she also appreciated how I was framing the story through the arc of the women's movement and partisan politics, and that it wasn't just about her, but it was about these bigger issues that she became a Rorschach test for.
I mean, if you look back at her history, she's like an American success story. She came from a humble family. She was smart, went to good schools, and, you know, was a trailblazing feminist, you know, I mean, almost ahead of her time, or frightening to people early on. You know, by the time the election happens, her failure seemingly is that she's too staid in her, you know, success.
Right. No, that's the irony of her life, that she was too liberal, considered too liberal, and then she was considered too mainstream. And, you know, some of that is misinformation that's out there. Some of it is the fear of some sort of political dynasty. Some of it is having worked in the system then at that point, having learned from failures. You know, when she was First Lady, was in charge of trying to pass universal health care and literally had death threats.
Please don't make me have health insurance.
Yeah, no, I know. People wanted to murder her. They burned her in effigy.
Right, yeah.
So I think when she got to the Senate, she learned how to work across the aisle, and then as a result of that, she was seen as very mainstream.
Yeah. No, I think the question of purity has become a word that's been floating around a lot lately. You know, if you are pure politically, ideologically, can you actually accomplish anything? Because in truth, the political arena and social life in general is way messier than that.
Well, yeah, especially in this country, we're so divided. And even if you have a Democratic in Congress and Senate, you have to be very strategic, because it will probably only last 2 years. Especially if there's a Democratic president. You have this little window to get one major accomplishment, like Obama did with the Affordable Care Act.
The setup for Hillary answering questions often includes a kind of pre-take of her getting makeup applied or getting her hair done, or some sort of moment before she kind of goes on as officially answering the questions. And I think I know what that means throughout, but maybe you want to talk about using that sort of before and after.
Yeah,
shot.
I mean, we do it mainly at the beginning of each episode. I think that's pretty much the only time. But we do it as a way of, A, to, you know, pull back the curtain, B, because it was when we were just chit-chatting about things, and she was still in front of the camera. And then C, you know, there's, at one point, you know, there is a spotlight on how she always needs to care about what she looks like. And she grew up as someone who did not care at all. And she, in the course of her life, fairly early on, I mean, once she, you know, her husband got into politics, she was scrutinized for it. And she just realized, you know what, this kind of noise and attention is not worth it, so I will just do it. I will play the game. But it's time consuming, and it's really unfortunate that women have to do that.
And this idea that no one believes they know her, everyone thinks she's putting on a front or something like that, and meanwhile, paradoxically, she's expected to adopt a certain look. Watching the whole Hillary series is in some ways incredibly painful. Like, to try to, not only her personal story and how it kind of founders, but the fact that election was so devastating to so many people. It was fear-inducing. It was beyond devastating. What kinds of feelings did you process making it, talking to her?
Well, it was very therapeutic for me, actually, because I was also devastated by that election. I still was. I mean, and that's why I didn't want to make it just about the election. I thought it would be too painful. The intention was that it was about her. And so how did the election affect her? What mistakes did she make? What was beyond her control?
Watching the whole thing, living now in this Trump nightmare, the decency of so many of the people in it, the way they articulated things, their intelligence, their compassion, that came through in such a strong and painful way in this particular moment that feels so reckless and so irresponsible and so mean-spirited.
Yeah, I mean, one of the delights for me as a filmmaker is when your subject surrounds himself with highly articulate, insightful interview subjects that can not only speak with intimacy, but have great insights and be able to communicate them very well on camera. And that was across the board. Now, I think it reflects a lot on the subject themselves, too. Like, wow, these are the people they've chosen to surround themselves with their entire lives.
The episode of Hillary competing against Barack Obama for that nomination, and then immediately after winning the presidency, he hires her in a very prominent role in his administration. It just feels to me like that kind of coalition building needs to happen now more than ever. The divisiveness in the country right now is just unbearable, and I don't know how anyone's going to stitch that back together, because in some ways, we may disagree with the other side, but their feelings count too, and I think somebody needs to try to rope in as many people on both ends of the spectrum as possible politically.
It's true. It is tough, though, because the other side of the aisle, there's not really a willingness to work together. And that's true for a certain segment of the left as well. More, the lefter leaning you are, the less likely you are going to be able to work with the other side. It's funny, too, because when I was growing up, there was 12 years of Republican presidents. And so, Bill Clinton came in partly because he represented the center. And that was very welcoming to the Democratic Party.
It was all about the economy, which was a kind of Republican thing
yes,
to care
exactly.
about.
And in general, he was very much a moderate Democrat. He was center and proud of it. And now it's completely changed, where that's a dirty word, where it used to be the opposite.
On that point, then, we're here in the Catskills. You grew up upstate, right?
I did. I grew up in Buffalo.
I look at the relationships I have with people here, and I try to understand their perspective, but most of the time I just come back to the idea that they're getting a lot of misinformation. I mean, it is cultural. It is about their identity in some ways as rural people versus city people. But there's such a readiness to mistrust, I think, anything that happens in an urban center, and certainly coming out of Washington, too. Is there any way for anyone to breach that
That's
divide?
a good question. I mean, I feel like what often happens in rural populations is they feel that the government's not going to do anything for them on either side.
Right.
But at least if it's the Republicans, they're not going to take their guns away. It's tough. How do you breach that? Because I don't agree with that notion. I think that government does have the opportunity to bring, to help change people's lives and have more social services, and there is a difference. I don't know how you communicate that, though. If I did, I'd run for president.
Nanette Burstein's 4-part documentary series titled Hillary is available for streaming on Hulu.
Kevin Bewersdorf is a multimedia artist and performer. His internet-based projects such as Spirit Surfers and Maximum Sorrow approach online culture with skepticism and spiritual longing. Bewersdorf performed a one-man show titled Pure Kev at the New Museum in 2009 and has appeared in numerous feature films such as Computer Chess. You're an artist, you went to art school, but your work has evolved into something so much broader. I mean, it involves film and video and even making feature films. Yeah. I'm curious to know where you started and how you got to this place of sort of satirizing corporate America and religious fanaticism.
I grew up in Illinois, in outside of Chicago in the
Bible
suburbs.
Belt, right?
Yeah, and didn't know what my culture was, or if I even had a culture, other than maybe the oppression of other cultures or co-opting other cultures. But there was a certain way of speaking and a kind of a lingo and a kind of a, from being raised by advertising and TV, and
Right.
I felt like was my language
Right.
that I understood. Early on, I was really interested just in the terminology, double talk, sort of hypnotic way of cycling around saying something without saying it, circling it and circling it and never hitting the center of it, and sort of creating this spiraling, cross-referencing terminology loop.
It occurs to me that religious presentation in like Southern Baptists or whatever, that's often sort of modeled on like advertising. It's a perfect fusion of like American advertising and religious belief.
For a long time, I've just been doing things on the internet and just putting up websites, which I like because they're hidden and can be sort of internal. People encounter them alone. I don't see them as being in a public space, really. I think it's an internal space.
So websites like Maxim Sorrow.
Yeah, Maxim Sorrow. And the work that I did after that time period, I wouldn't tell anyone about it. I would put up a website and not link to it or have it linked to anywhere. And then it's sort of like it's off in a jungle and you would have to stumble on it accidentally, or maybe it has a sort of a fable status where it may exist or it may not. And
is it kind of like the speakeasy of the internet where you just have to know about it by word of mouth and find the website and find your way into it too? A little bit sort of coded, like the language you're talking about in religion.
I don't think that the internet is particularly good for people.
I get the impression you were deep into it at one time.
Yeah.
And you've sort of stepped back.
The promise of it of the internet from the start, sort of California New Age tech guru guy presenting it as something that was good for humanity, like sort of the library of the world. But I see it as more properly as like a drug experience. And that's like an internal journey type of experience to surf around.
You were excited about it.
I was excited about it, and I think people felt really excited.
Yeah. And for example, the essay you wrote, Fear No Evil, this is something you wrote after you had removed yourself from the internet and then came back. Yeah. And you actually offer a concise explanation about what it means to take yourself out of the expansive internet system. The terminology is expansion versus
expansion and contraction, kind of. Yeah. More and more and more users, followers, views, growing the capacity of the technology.
The fantasy of unlimited growth.
Yeah, I like decline. People see it as evil because it goes against the market.
So you say it was sort of like a death to like shut down your sites.
Yeah, to have no social presence on the internet at all, really cold turkey, is like a death. People can experience that even for a brief time if they try for a half a day. They feel like they're just in the underworld, totally dead to the world.
They're literally vanishing by not being there.
That was what my instinct was to do right then, like a wounded animal would be. I feel that I had expanded myself beyond my reach of control into all these different far-flung places, and it didn't feel good. It felt like I had dissipated. The challenge would be to like align yourself into one person and not be scattered around as all of these other smaller personas based on the context of each site or each network.
And different personas in each context, right? And I mean that's what sort of the genesis of Pure Kev, that sort of alter ego that web version of yourself. That's where that comes from, right?
And it's making a joke out of the notion of purity even. But it's like everything that I work on as simultaneously a joke and completely serious, and that hopefully then people are totally unclear as to whether I'm joking or not, and then that's the place where you have them in the twilight, where then something can happen, because when you're not sure if it's this side or that side.
But it's an interesting idea though, because I think that's something that even teenagers are kind of waking up to. It's probably something that
they're tired of it. They want authenticity. Yeah. But it's also not quite strong enough of a word for it. Right. Because purity, that's a pretty intense word for a lot of people. They don't want to admit that something like that would exist because it signals virtue that people might not be comfortable with.
Purity has become this sort of absolute ideal that people look for in politics or in food now or whatever. It's, you know, it's
There's no space for contradiction.
and it's fine to aspire to ideals, but I think also if it gets in the way of certain kinds of practicality, then we're all paralyzed by not being able to make choices anymore.
It gets into repression at a certain point. If you're forcing yourself to stay inside of the cave for too long, it's like you push a beach ball down, it's going to pop up even stronger. You can't get to the point where you're forcing yourself into the cave. When the spring comes, the bear leaves.
Yeah.
You know, so I put up an archive recently to try to catalog some of the things that I had hidden on the internet for many years. Some of them for 10 years, URLs which I never shared, or maybe one or two people I would email and tell them. But some of them, as far as I know, were up there for a decade and no one ever saw them. That excites me a lot more than just sharing everything, because there's a excitement to discovering something that was hidden and off in the jungle, and you have to go and search for it. The same HTML that I learned to make websites in 1998, you know, when I made my first website. That's what I use now, just because then it's like sovereign. The GIF in particular, the animated GIF, is a sovereign format. You don't have to embed it with code from a certain video, you know, sharing site. You don't have to worry about its obsolescence, really, because it's such a vital part of the early internet that, you know, browsers going into the future would stop implementing it because it's so important culturally. That's the kind of nerdy stuff that got me excited to make things on the computer, more so than thinking about its context or its purpose or its, you know.
Yeah, but I think the things you've created, though, tend to be like heart, mind, meditation, Eastern religion, kinds of symbolic.
From 2008 or 9 till 16, I almost exclusively was interested in Taoism, and I was just spending all my time. I moved up to the mountains here and was just studying and reading, and had a number of teachers, and it was an obsession, and it was almost like being in a trance for a time, which was broken by going to China and experiencing China and meeting some teachers there. And I thought that I would be pursuing that as a life path after I returned, but instead the trance was broken, and I didn't have any interest in it anymore. Yeah. And then I started doing acting and music at that point.
Being a performance artist is seemingly a natural step toward being, you know, a real actor, but you've been in several films now, and maybe most notably Computer Chess.
I happened to go to high school with filmmaker Joe Swanberg, who I made movies with when I was growing up, and he started making movies and asked me if I wanted to act in some, so I did, because it sounded fun. This is a part of having no career, moving between things so much that people can't catch you or know what you are, really.
Yeah, being career cast or something like that, right?
Yeah. But I love working on movies. It's my favorite thing. It's like a family atmosphere like no other. And that and working in restaurants, which is something else that I've done to pay the bills over the years. Restaurants and movies, very similar feeling for me.
A sense of morale, and you're working as a group together, and it's very improvisational, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there is sort of hierarchies that develop within it, but all that really matters then is just, you know, person to person right there, and that you have this shared goal of, you know, I just want to make a really good movie or a good meal.
It's a direct human experience, right? I mean, it's focused.
That's why I working so much alone with the computer, when I'm working on music or working on visual work with the computer, is so isolating, and it would be so imbalanced to focus only on that, and then to integrate yourself into a group of friends and humanity in a larger way, work on a movie or that's the projects that I've gravitated towards, to integrate with the collective, you know, so that I don't become too in my head.
You do music, and I know that music's a big part of a lot of the videos that you create your own music for, you know, the satiric videos or what have you. But this album is, you know, completely legit, and I'm listening to it and I'm wondering, just in the same way that a feature film looks that way, sounds polished, but I'm listening to it though and wondering what parts you did. You know, are all the vocals yours? Is it? It's obviously a lot of layered electronic music, but
it's all me. I set up in I had a little one-room schoolhouse in Delhi there that I set up my gear and made a little vocal booth with some moving blankets and but I worked on that album for about 5 years, off and on, mostly in the last year.
I think the picture, the album cover picture, looks like one of those kind of throwback '60s, like Gordon Lightfoot or something. It's very serious. And
Yeah, I took it very seriously. Honestly, an outlet for sadness for me. Even though there's always humor there to make it bearable, you know, the sadness is what I did it for. It's almost like sobbing into the music instead of so that you don't sob into your pillow.
But a lot of the songs have quite a dance beat to them. You
Sure,
know?
yeah.
Yeah, it's like a higher energy, almost a club sound in places.
Yeah, I tried to being up here alone in the Catskills too, making all that, you get to party inside.
Right.
You know, like late at night, I just go to my own party inside.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think everybody's doing that now. They're baking and dancing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's sort of what's going on in all these apartments and houses.
Yeah, that's what music's always been for me, as a isolated experience.
It's a good album. It's very good.
Oh,
you know?
thanks.
Wow. I wouldn't just say that, but it's. I will definitely be listening to it again.
I worked real hard on that album, and I'm trying to be proud of it.
Kevin Bewersdorf's new album, Faded Glory, is available on YouTube. His life's work is collected on his website, kevinbewersdorf.org.